Sexual harassment at work. Sexual harassment at work causes many problems. Victims often face serious difficulty in concentrating on their work. This results in performance problems which are made worse by medical ailments, which may be the outcome of stress caused by harassment. In a work environment where sexual harassment is openly allowed to take place, victims may choose to resign rather than report the harasser to the appropriate authority. Defining sexual harassment is any unwanted conduct of a sexual nature having the effect of verbal, non-verbal, visual, psychological, or physical harassment that might, on reasonable ground, be perceived by the recipient as a placing a condition of a sexual nature on his or her employment. Sexual harassment behavioral class can be divided into 5 types. Physical harassment is inappropriate touching of person. Psychological harassment is physical intimacy. Visual harassment showing pornography picture. Verbal harassment requesting sexual favor. Lastly, non-verbal harassment is expression of a sexual nature. Handling a claim of sexual harassment. Some of employees may resign without informing anyone the reason for their leaving. Because they don't know who to complain, they are afraid that no one will believe them, or they are too embarrassed to speak up. So, the step that employees should take if they've been sexually harassed is inform a senior officer immediately when the sexual harassment occurs. Keep any document, object, or other proof of the harassment. Make a police report against the harasser. Keep a record of what was said and done by the harasser. The most effective way to stop sexual harassment at work is prevention. Hospitality employer can implement in order to create a sexual harassment-free workplace. Provide guidelines on a sexual harassment policy and procedure to all employees. Promptly investigate and deal with all complaints of sexual harassment. Appropriately discipline employees who harass other employees. Law and sexual harassment. More and more countries are introducing specific legislation to outlaw sexual harassment at work, or they are including provision on the sexual harassment in law on sexual discrimination, so that the victim can make a complaint that they have been sexually harassed.
Here are some tips that you can use to prevent violence at work. Have you ever heard about violence at work? The definition of violence at workplace is any action, incident, or behavior that departs from reasonable conduct in which a person is assaulted, threatened, harmed, injured in the course of or as a direct result of his or her work. Here are 5 ways to prevent violence at work. Tip number 1. We encourage you reporting of all incidents of violence at your workplace. Tip number 2. Company needs to educate employees on current policies and procedures, as well as on possible warning signs of workplace violence. Tip number 3. Employee must take appropriate actions, such as notify authorities when needed. Tip number 4. Employer need to be aware of changes in employee behavior, such as absenteeism or change in performance. Tip number 5. Additional safety measures, such as security, may help deter possible violent events from occurring.